Like rapper and actor Tupac Shakur is dead at the age of 25. Shakur was shot 4 times after leaving the Mike Tyson boxing match in Las Vegas.
Rap star Tupac Shakur died last night after a brief life in a rough business. He was 25.
After rap star Tupac Shakur, 5-year-old rapper, was in the backseat of a black BMW.
He has multiple gunshot wounds to the chest.
Las Vegas police say shots were fired from a passing white Cadillac.
On Tuesday, jurors in Las Vegas sat through one of the toughest days yet in this trial. Prosecutors brought in the county's current medical examiner, Dr. Lisa Gavin.
He died of gunshot wounds of chest and abdomen.
And do you have an opinion as to the manner of death?
Yes.
And what is that?
Homicide.
When a medical examiner uses the term homicide, what does that mean?
The simplest form is death at the hands of another.
To explain exactly how Tupac died, and to do that, she had to show the jury photos from his original autopsy.
This is the right side of the body up by the chest area. You can see the right axilla or armpit in that region. And then you could see some of the sutures of what they call a thoracotomy incision, where they've cut into the side of the chest. And then just below that, this is an entrance gunshot wound. He wasn't able to breathe. He was bleeding out in that area from that injury.
You could tell it hit hard. Several of Tupac's own family members got up and left the room before those photos went up. Others stayed anyway.
He only took a few photos at the time of autopsy. At that time, they used Polaroids, or they used film and cameras. And so we had few photos of the body itself.
Dr. Gavin wasn't even the doctor who did the original autopsy back in 1996. That doctor has since passed away, so she came in as an expert to explain those old findings to today's jury. Before her, a man named Thomas Kern testified too. He'd just started working for Las Vegas police back in 1996, and he was actually in the room for Tupac's original autopsy all those years ago. Later that day, an officer named Dean O'Kelly took the stand holding the actual bullet casings collected from the scene that night. Evidence that's been sitting in a police storage room for almost 30 years, waiting for a trial that honestly, a lot of people probably thought would never happen. Through most of it, Duane Davis, the man on trial for planning this whole thing, barely reacted. People in the courtroom said he just sat there, watching, occasionally leaning over to whisper something to his lawyer. And I'll be honest, that alone says something to me. You're watching photos of a man's death get shown to a room full of strangers, and if you're the one accused of causing it, you'd think there'd be some kind of reaction. There wasn't much of one. But the part that actually stuck with me more came from the day before, and it hasn't gotten nearly as much attention. On the very first day of this trial, the first person to testify was a retired officer named Gary Dale, and what he said was honestly wild. Earlier that same night, hours before anything happened, he and another officer had pulled over the exact car Tupac and Suge Knight were riding in. Just a routine stop for a missing license plate. They gave them a warning and let them go. A few hours later, that same car got shot up at a red light.
Still talking, and I was trying to convince him to tell me the name of whoever his assailants were.
And did he ever respond?
Yes, he responded, no, we'll take care of it. So something like that.
No, we'll take
care of it. Something.
I asked him first if he needed medical assistance, and he refused. He said he was fine. I then asked him what happened, and he told me basically that a couple of guys that he didn't know jumped him. And once again, I asked him if he needed medical. He said no. I asked if he wanted to file a report, and he said no.
Dale was also the officer who rode along afterward and personally asked Tupac who was responsible. Another witness that day, a man named James McDonald, used to run security at the nightclub Suge Knight owned, the exact place Tupac and Knight were driving toward when it happened. He told the jury something kind of interesting. If you type the club's name on an old phone keypad, it actually spells out a word tied to the gang Knight was connected to. Small detail, but it says a lot about how tangled up the music business and gang connections were back then. And then there was a fourth witness that day who honestly caught me off guard, given what this trial is even about. A retired detective named Fred Miller got up and testified, not about Tupac at all, but about the still unsolved killing of the notorious B.I.G. the following year. Miller explained that Duane Davis, at some point, actually got connected to that investigation too. The defense pushed back on that testimony being allowed in at all, and the judge ended up telling the jury directly that police don't actually believe Davis had anything to do with that case. But it's a strange thing to sit with. This one man's name coming up in connection with both of hip-hop's most famous unsolved deaths. So that's where things stand right now, 2 days into testimony. To really get why any of this matters and why it's taken almost 30 years to get here, you have to go back to where the whole thing actually started. For years, the man now accused of planning Tupac's death did interviews about it, wrote a whole book about it, talked about it on podcasts. And somehow, none of that was enough to get him arrested until it finally was.
27 years. 27 years. For 27 years, the family of Tupac Shakur has been waiting for justice. We are here today to announce the arrest of 60-year-old Duane Keith Davis, aka Keefy D, for the murder of Tupac Shakur.
Tupac was 25 years old and at the top of his career when he went to Las Vegas in September 1996 to watch a Mike Tyson fight. He was there with Suge Knight, along with a group of people around them. As they were leaving afterward, someone in their group spotted a man named Orlando Anderson near the elevators. Weeks earlier, Anderson and some of his friends had jumped one of Knight's people and taken something from him. Tupac recognized him, walked up, and hit him. What followed was a fight caught on the hotel's own cameras, with Tupac, Knight, and a few others involved. Security broke it up pretty quickly. Nobody got seriously hurt. Tupac went back to his room, and it seemed like that was the end of it. But according to prosecutors, one person didn't let it go: Orlando Anderson's uncle, Duane Davis. They say that after watching his nephew get beat up on camera, Davis started planning to get back at the people responsible. He allegedly got a gun through someone described only as a close friend, and later that night got into a car with 3 other men, his nephew and 2 other guys named Terrence Brown and DeAndre Smith. All 3 of those men have since died, which is part of why this case has been so hard to piece together. Tupac and Knight, meanwhile, left in Knight's car, heading to the club we just talked about. They stopped at a red light. That other car pulled up right beside them, and shots came from inside it. Tupac was hit multiple times. Knight got a minor injury but was okay. Tupac was rushed to the hospital, where he held on for 6 days before he died on September 13, 1996. He was 25.
And in that white Cadillac, before the shooting occurs, Duane Davis explains that the driver is Terrence T. Brown. In the rear driver's side is DeAndre Dre, or Big Dre Smith. In the rear passenger side is Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. And Duane Davis himself, Keefy D, is in the front passenger side. And this is how Duane Davis explains the murder of Tupac Shakur.
Nobody was arrested. And for almost 30 years, that's just how it stayed.
And we just suddenly heard a lot of gunfire. And we ran to the barrier wall that was overlooking Koval Boulevard, not Koval, Flamingo Boulevard. And that's when I witnessed what I saw.
We pulled up on the side of him, and she was talking to Suge. He was relaxed, like sitting in the sitting in the passenger seat. And Suge was relaxed, talking to Lauren. Nothing, like there was no engagement.
Here's what makes this whole thing so unusual, though. It's not that nobody knew anything. It's that the man on trial right now has been talking about his part in this, out loud, for decades. Orlando Anderson, the man most people believe actually fired the shots, always denied being involved whenever reporters asked him. He was killed in a completely separate incident in 1998, and whatever he knew died with him. Davis, though, kept talking. Back in 1998, in an interview with BET, someone asked him straight up who fired the shots. His answer was basically, "I'm not naming names, but yeah, it came from the back seat." He didn't name a shooter, but he was confirming on camera that he was there. Then in 2019, Davis actually wrote a memoir, and according to what prosecutors told the jury, in that book he says he was sitting in the front seat when it happened, and that he's the one who got the gun to whoever pulled the trigger. He did interviews promoting the book, went on podcasts talking about it. For years, this guy was basically the only real source the public had for what happened that night, and somehow, none of it led to charges. That finally changed in July 2023, when police searched a home connected to him. 2 months later, he was arrested and charged with murder. And here's something worth explaining, because it's really the whole basis of this case. Under the law in Nevada, you don't actually have to be the one holding the gun to get charged with murder. If prosecutors can show you planned it, got the weapon, or helped make it happen, you can be held just as responsible as whoever actually pulled the trigger.
Well, under Nevada law, and this is the law in most states in this country, you can be charged with a crime whether you're directly involved or whether you're an aider and abetter. If you help somebody commit a crime, you can be equally as guilty. That is one of the theories in this case as well.
That's exactly what they're arguing here. They're not saying Davis shot Tupac. They're saying he's the reason it happened at all. Getting from the arrest to an actual trial took almost 3 more years. His lawyers kept pushing for delays, first saying they needed time to track down a witness who claimed Davis wasn't even in Las Vegas that night, which is a strange argument considering his own book says the opposite. They also tried to get the evidence from that 2023 search thrown out completely. Both of those attempts failed, and Davis has been sitting in jail without bail this entire time. Jury selection finally started in early August. The jury was picked on August 13th. And on Monday, August 17th, almost exactly 30 years after Tupac died, opening statements finally happened. The prosecutor told the jury something that really stuck with me, that almost nobody involved in this whole story has ever wanted to talk, except Davis. She said flat out that he didn't pull the trigger, but that he planned the whole thing to get back at the people who hurt his nephew, and that the jury would learn most of this straight from Davis's own words, which is honestly a bold move for a murder case, building your whole argument around a guy who just couldn't stop bragging. Davis's lawyer pushed back hard, calling the whole story fiction. And to be fair, his argument isn't crazy. There's no real physical evidence like DNA tying Davis to the actual gun. His lawyer's whole point is that talking a big game in interviews and writing a book to make money isn't the same thing as an actual, provable confession. Prosecutors say they could call somewhere between 35 and 45 witnesses total before this is over, and the trial's expected to run for about a month. Some big names could still show up. Suge Knight himself, since he's the only other person still alive who was actually in the car. Members of Tupac's family. The man who runs security for Death Row Records. Even the guy who co-wrote Davis's book with him. So here's really what this whole case comes down to. Nobody has ever officially said who pulled the trigger. The other 2 men who were allegedly in that back seat are both dead, and neither one was ever charged with anything. The defense is going to lean hard on that, arguing that even if Davis was in the car, that doesn't prove he actually wanted anyone to die that night, as opposed to just wanting to scare them. My honest opinion? 30 years of the same guy telling basically the same story, over and over, in interviews and in an actual published book. That's a hard thing to just brush off as talk. But that's exactly what this jury has to figure out. And this is the only real criminal case that's ever come out of Tupac's death. Whatever they decide, it's probably the closest thing to a real answer this case is ever going to get. We'll keep following this as more testimony comes in over the next few weeks. If you want to stay updated, hit like on this video, subscribe to Spotlight Flow, and share it with anyone who's followed this case over the years. Let us know in the comments, after almost 30 years, do you think this trial actually gets Tupac's family real answers? Or is it just too late to matter?